As promised, we have a session titled Out of the Basement and Into the Cloud, Data-Led Migration. To help us with that presentation, we have our very own John Gray, John Gray, a visionary leader and serial entrepreneur. John co-founded Infinity Consulting, an early adopter and leader in public cloud services. Prior to Infinity, John served as CTO and senior software engineer for multiple large system integrators and startups. He now leads Intervision's product development team. He provides strategic vision and thought leadership to fuel Intervision's rapid growth. This involves gaining a deep understanding of client and market needs and matching those to leading edge technology products and services. And he combines those into solutions for our customers. He is joined today by Christian Smith of AWS, the head of go-to-market for File, Edge, Data Sync, and Snow. Christian oversaw the solution architect teams for 8 years at NetApp before leading the first enterprise region in the Bay Area for 6 years, before moving to Southern California to run the Intermountain Solution Architects team for 2 years. So with that, John, I'm going to toss it over to you, my friend, and I think I butchered Christian's introduction. So my apologies if I did, sir.
No problem.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. So are you seeing my screen correctly?
You are good to go, sir.
Fantastic. Well, I'm excited to be here to talk about my favorite topic, which is data. Specifically, we're talking about getting data out of on-prem, out of your basement and into the cloud or into a hybrid environment that involves the cloud. And Christian is here to help me talk about that. So thank you for kind of introducing us both. I put a term up here for myself, which is data evangelist. The reason I call myself that is I've been in the IT business in one way or another for a few decades, and I've always focused around data. In the 80s it was called data centric. I built a lot of transactional database systems, very large systems, relational database systems, early object systems where data and code are together, leading into data warehousing, data marts, data lakes, data analytics, predictive analytics, on and on, right? And as I look at organizations today, right, as they become truly digital, the thing that makes them is their data. You can buy new servers, rebuild environments, modernize applications, use service-driven APIs, serverless, etc. But what makes an organization unique is their data. Data is the raw material to knowledge, wisdom, and the next levels, AI and all of that. So, it's truly where we need to be focused. So that's me. I think Jeff did a pretty good job introducing Christian. He has a ton of experience with these large NAS devices, the very complex multi-protocol, very large devices from NetApp, Isilon, and others. So you get the point. We're kind of, qualified to talk about this topic. We're going to be talking about why migrations have, in many cases, stalled, how Amazon FSxN is a enterprise class storage that really is ready to help with those stalled migrations. It is the answer, and why with data-led migrations you need a team of experts. So let me drive on here. So Intervision, we believe that we are the most qualified to do these types of migrations for our customers. We've got 25 plus years of experience with NetApp. For example, we were NetApp Partner of the Year in 2022. We are in a rare breed. We are a Amazon Premier Partner. There's about 100 in the world. We've got migration competency, storage competency, DevOps competency with AWS. Those are not easy to attain. You've got to have a lot of experience and skill. So combine those things together, and we work very powerfully, very closely with our partners, with AWS, with NetApp. We are able to help you move your data securely, safely, and cost effectively. And we can help you manage your environments. We can train your environments and make you self-sufficient, or somewhere in between. So, we've got a lot of different ways that we work with our clients to empower them over time. So why do many cloud migrations stall? We're in a situation here, which the top right box on this slide, where a lot of workloads, most of the simple workloads, have been migrated. I spend quite a lot of time talking to Gartner and other industry experts. I was talking to them this morning. Gartner will tell you that well over 90% of organizations have workloads in the cloud, but they will also tell you that more than half of the workloads are still on premises. So if you think about that for a minute, everybody's pretty much is in the cloud, but they don't have everything in the cloud. So what is that that's still on-prem, and why is it still there? In many cases, it's the complex, large, difficult, and important workloads and data that's still on-prem. And those things are difficult and overwhelming to move. Enterprise class storage really comes into play here. And we'll get into more why FSxN is that storage, and it will help unlock the rest of the things that need to be migrated to the cloud. So FSxN, comes with a variety of names thrown around, and I want to kind of clear that up. So that if you know about NetApp ONTAP, if you're a NetApp customer, and ONTAP is a quite brilliant solution, it is now called FSxN, which is NetApp's gear, literally their storage gear, in all of Amazon's data centers. It's NetApp's ONTAP data management system with all its great capabilities around snapshots and SnapMirror and FlexClone and data compression, data duplication. All of that now available in AWS. So you got support for Linux, Windows, Mac OS, all the standard MSS, SMB, iSCSI protocols, all those kinds of great things are now brought to you in the cloud. It automatically does a whole bunch of things. Automatic tiering of infrequently accessed data to move it into cheaper storage. For it coming into the cloud, you got fully elastic storage. You only use what you need. You can go up to enormous amounts, petabytes, and whatever is beyond petabytes. It's cost optimized so that all these great features that are available to you at a good price. With the ability of Amazon's architecture and the strength of all their data centers, you can quickly be in a high availability architecture, highly durable with multi-region, cross-region replication. So both high availability and very reliable. It integrates common security access mechanisms like Microsoft Active Directory. Also, very high levels of encryption, built-in at rest, that type of thing. So, given I've gone through it at a high level, let me hand it off to Christian, who will give you a bit more details on the nitty-gritty of why FSxN is truly a paradigm shift.
Sure. Thanks, John. Hello, everybody. I'm Christian Smith. I run the file services go-to-market here, which was mentioned, and have a history in unstructured data. So I think I've spent collectively 22 years working in unstructured data at various levels, whether it's, putting NetApp in the back of a car and dropping it off filers at customers in the early days, to deploying, multi-petabyte systems in large enterprise data centers, to now deploying, multi-petabyte, gigabyte, terabyte solutions for customers in AWS. The one thing I'll say is like FSX stands for File System Other. And what we do at AWS is take file systems, and there's about 30 of them out in the world, and we turn them into fully managed offerings. And so I look at this offering of FSXN as a little bit of peanut butter and chocolate here, which is it's the best of NetApp and it's the best of AWS, delivering infrastructure as a service. And so, love my Reese's peanut butter cups, and we'll talk profusely about them some other day. But the idea here is it's all the rich data management features of NetApp. It's the things that, if you look in your enterprise data center today, you got SAN and NAS. I think SAN is something that's a little bit easier to migrate. We have our EBS block offerings to go migrate into in AWS, and it's more of a lift and shift mode. But NAS has always been this challenge because you have a set of data management capabilities that you use and rely on day to day. And if you don't have that equivalent, it means you're doing work. It means you're doing things like you're rewriting your application to take advantage of object interfaces, or you're rewriting your application or trying to shove your application into a full, something you have to manage yourself in a NAS environment. And what we like is to look at it and go, hey, we've eliminated a lot of roadblocks and obstacles. So you get all those data management features you expect from NetApp, or maybe you don't even know NetApp and you don't even know what features there are. Plus you get AWS, which means it is a fully managed service. And it is available in all of our data centers everywhere, and you pay as you go, and it has robust security, compliance, and encryption around it. And so just kind of digging into FSXN, when we talk about, NAS, like what is NetApp? NetApp is, a NAS device, multi-protocol NAS device, talks SMB or CIFS, depending on where you come from, and NFS, and it also does iSCSI. It has a rich set of data management features like snapshots. So you get zero space snapshots, you get instantaneous clones of your data, you get deduplication and compression so that you get tremendous cost savings. And you have things like storage efficient or space efficient replication, network efficient backup and data protection capabilities, failover capabilities. And so it gives you this rich portfolio of things you can do at the storage layer at a far simpler layer to manage your environment. So for example, in a VMC environment or VMware environment, you could have your golden copy of your VM and you can clone it 1,000 times and create 1,000 VM instances without consuming a whole bunch of space. So that's NetApp, and great use cases around, using shared storage as opposed to dedicated block storage for a number of applications where you're decoupling the scaling of compute from the scaling of storage. Now, what does AWS bring to the table? So we deploy NetApp's code in our data centers, and it is available for you to instantaneously spin up or spin down. We have built this as a fully managed service. So there's a lot of things you never have to do again. You don't need to patch your systems again. We take care of that for you. You don't need to monitor and troubleshoot your systems. We take care of that for you. You don't need to worry about kind of version, maintenance patches, et cetera. We take care of that for you. You don't have to worry about hardware, failures, faults, any issues associated with that. That's built into our infrastructure as a service offering, which means you can focus more on the things that your end user applications or end users care about, which is a higher quality of service. Like they would rather you spend time with them than worry about what's going on in the data center. We deploy FSXN, and it's a fairly simple environment. You spin it up, you pick how much capacity you want in SSDs, you pick your tiering policy to capacity pool, and I'll talk about that more in a second, and you dial up your throughput you need for your server virtual machine, and it provisions it, and you're off and running. We have built this with cost optimization built in every instance that you spin up, meaning it is an SSD and it's a capacity pool as a single instance, and you choose the tiering policy. So if you want to deploy 10 terabytes of SSD and your workload is a petabyte, and you're kind of following that most of your data is inactive, we'll do the auto tiering with FSXN between a capacity pool at a lower cost and an SSD pool for your high performance data, and automatically hydrate data into the SSD pool as it gets accessed. And so all of these things really mean that there's a list price associated with this, but don't be deceived by the list price. Take a look at the effective price of this. And we have real proof points around this where, you know, the effective price point of customers deploying with things like capacity pools and compression and dedupe is lower than the capacity pool price by itself. So very exciting times for us to have this partnership with NetApp and deploy this code as a first-party service, which means that as a first-party service, you go into the console and you can go, you know, provision it or use our native APIs or AWS CLIs to go provision it. And so what are customers doing today? Go ahead. Did you have a question, John?
No, I was just going to say, I moved on to your use case slide.
Yep. So what are customers doing today? It tends to be, you know, file shares, applications, SAP HANA, SAP NEDB, Oracle, self-managed Oracles, MS SQL Server, you know, ERP, VMware, VMC, if you're moving your workloads over to VMC. We're seeing a lot of line of business apps in like chip design and healthcare and financial service if you're doing financial risk modeling, and M&E if you're doing, you know, content creation, editing, transcoding. Very popular in the public sector as there's mandates to move to cloud into the public sector. And then, of course, if you have NetApp on-prem today, you can replicate your on-prem environment into AWS and create a secondary standby copy and not have to provision all the other services around it. You would just have your copy of data there waiting for you via SnapMirror. So I'll leave it at that, John. A great bunch of use cases. And of course, you know, there's thousands of ISVs that use NetApp today. They are all certified because it is like for like compatible to on-prem.
So yeah, thanks, Christian. I mean, what Amazon's seeing, as I understand it, is that this is the fastest growing storage service you've ever had, including being faster than S3, which was one of the original groundbreaking services that Amazon put out many years ago, right? So you're seeing very high adoption rates, right?
Yeah, we are seeing very rapid adoption of FSxN, and it goes to that, like there's been little choice in the cloud for, you know, having your NAS environment move over to AWS, and as a result, just that pent-up demand that we've seen has far exceeded ours and NetApp's expectations for this.
So that's, yeah, I think, you know, and to sort of drive home the point, because the question I get quite a bit when I talk about this is, well, isn't it really expensive? And my answer is always, well, if you do it right, no, it can be more cost effective. But, you know, it's a sophisticated architecture that FSxN has, and you need to kind of understand how to do it right. So, and then, you know, companies that are doing that, like Advanced MD, who is, you know, a healthcare customer, they're seeing a very large cost reduction, over operational reduction. Blackboard, that's a learning management system in the higher ed space, you know, they're seeing big savings around, you know, their burden on their DevOps team. You know, they're now able to do a lot more, a lot faster. IESA is an engineering company that's doing some pretty significant things. They're seeing both storage cost reduction and productivity improvement. So it truly is, you know, it's the kind of product, if you do it right, it is a win-win, you know. So I'll talk more about that in a minute, but it is a completely different paradigm in storage.
Hey, John, I'm going to jump in here with results from our poll. We asked our audience, how are you using the public cloud? And for applications, barely nudged out for data.
Okay.
So 3 percentage points difference for applications as opposed to for data. So just wanted to throw that in. Let you continue on, sir.
Thank you. And thank you those who did the poll. So, so we've sort of spent quite a bit of time here talking about, you know, how powerful FSxN is and, you know, all the greatness of it. So what's stopping you? And I am going to answer this question for you, because we talk to a lot of people and have a lot of understanding of it, you know, from our clients. You know, for those who are already using NetApp, right, they understand the power of ONTAP and the tools, but they lack the expertise in migrating workloads to the cloud. They've got very skilled storage architects, but they're not cloud architects. Once you start to dig into this, you realize data migrations, because on a single NAS device, you may have a whole bunch of stakeholders, business stakeholders, that have their data there, and for one reason or another. You've got SAP, ERP systems, you've got data marts, you may have file shares, all on the same device. And you've got to go talk to all of those groups, get them aligned. You've got to understand the security and all those kinds of things. It pretty quickly becomes a kind of overwhelming task if you don't, know how to do these kinds of migrations. And if you don't have NetApp, you've got some of those challenges, plus you've got a learning curve. This is a sophisticated, powerful tool that will really take your business to the next level, but it is sophisticated. There are some things that have to be done right to really get the most out of it. And this is really where a company like Innovision comes in, because what we call data-led, the reason we call it a data-led migration and not just a simple cloud migration is it is the data now that is kind of the focus, right? As we migrate things over. A lot of the times in the past, it was the applications, the workload, the servers that were the focus in lift and shift and those type of situations. Now it's data. And there's some differences, nuances and things that have to be done differently to do a data-led migration project well. But we still follow the Innovision, the robust project delivery model that we have, which, is a tried and true project management approach, right? Kickoff meetings, probably with a lot of people in these kinds of projects. Project planning, develop the plan, work the plan. Communication plan, right? There's a lot of stakeholders involved in these sort of projects. You got to figure out who they are, how you want to communicate with them, how often, how you're going to get the information to them. There are plenty of risks involved in this kind of project because you've got data sources on-prem that are being constantly updated. How are you going to get all that over? So, all of those things have solutions, right? But you got to make sure you understand them. And how you're going to mitigate them, how you're going to have contingency plans if needed, and so everybody understands what's going on. Change control. I mean, these projects don't happen overnight. They typically take a number of months. So you've got to figure out, okay, if there's updates done on-prem, how are we going to deal with that? In the cloud, what are we going to do? It's all achievable. And then really understanding what's the budget, and how are you tracking to that? So earn value, all those good disciplines from project management standpoint really come into play here. Status meetings, tracking, keeping everybody up to date, and then closing out a successful project. So, at Innovision, we have a lot of very skillful project managers who also understand the technology. And from a technology standpoint, we follow Amazon's methodology for migrations, which really have these broad phases of assess, right? So we come in and we do discovery. In data-led migrations, we focus a lot more around data storage discovery. When we were doing in the early days, 5-10 years ago, the early migrations, we'd come in and we'd use tools to identify applications and workloads. And then we'd have some of our engineers log in and look for SAN devices and NAS devices, these things that we also had to deal with. It was focused on the workloads, on the applications. It's the opposite now. We focus on the data. We've got some very powerful tools to do that and automate it. Some from NetApp, some from Amazon, some that are independent from companies like DataDolby that are fantastic tools that our team understands how to use and are very, very good with. We've pushed these tools to the absolute limit. So, migrating millions of files. So we do a lot of discovery. We look at things like data governance policies. How are you going to govern the data, control the data across, data stewardship, that sort of thing across the different platforms or in the cloud. When we get into the mobilize phase, we do look at data ownership, security. Often we find very complex security that has to be replicated in the cloud so that the right people have access to the data. Privacy and security is, paramount. Take healthcare and HIPAA and things like that. You've got to have that security in the cloud and in transit and every stopping point in between. So that's where the migration approach comes in. Landing zone developments, it's a typical thing we do, but more of an FXN flavor, data migration tool setup, and then into the actual migration itself, using the tools, doing testing and cutover, final transition to catch data up online in the cloud. And then we can help you. We've got tons of capabilities around data modernization, application modernization, and innovation in general once you get your data into the cloud. So here is an example of a typical FXN architecture, kind of done well, really. If you've got an on-prem NetApp installation, that's on the left, and then dual AZs in the middle of availability zones. So you've got high availability there, and then replicating into another region to give you the sort of backup and DR capabilities. So this is an example of how to do FXN and do it well and for scale. We also, how do we gain all this expertise? Well, in many cases, we already had it within our organization. What we did was built out using our own data centers and some of our older NetApp and Isilon devices. We connected all that stuff up together. We built out large environments in the cloud. Amazon gave us capability to do that. NetApp provided the tools. We used tools like DataDolby. We used every tool there is, and we pushed them to the limit. We did all kinds of scenarios. We really tried to create the worst case. We're able to use this environment for demos. So for those of you who are interested, we can show you what's going on. We as an organization, I'm running short on time here, so I'm kind of going through these pretty quickly. We're very skilled at working with Amazon around their funding mechanisms, their migration acceleration program, which basically helps gain funding from Amazon to help pay for the migration itself. Depending on your size, it could be MAP, it could be MAP Lite for smaller companies, which is, funding, it's not as much, but it is still significant. We can do POCs that are funded by Amazon. Christian is throwing in $500 of Amazon FXN credits for anybody who's interested, right, Christian? For a while, at least.
You bet.
And we as a company, we will throw in some initial, hours to help get you set up with a POC environment if you're serious about this. So lots of things we'll do to work with you, because we really realize you need to trust us, right? You need to find a partner who's good. You try and do this on your own, it's pretty difficult. But you've got to have trust in the company that's going to do this with you. And we understand that, and we're happy to earn that trust and spend time with you. So with that, I get to my last slide here, and there's the obligatory QR code here, and the person we connect you up with is Steve Voss, who would have been on this presentation, but he's actually on vacation this week. He has over 25 years of experience of NetApp. He's an AWS certified person at this point, deep expert in NetApp, in Amazon, and generally understanding how to make all of this work for you. So with that,
awesome. Well, hey, John, Christian, thank you very much. We've got some questions, and we did do a second poll. So if you want to pop up those poll results, I'll be glad to talk about them. A lot of people, their answer was no data on-prem. So the question was, do you still have some applications, workloads that are on-prem? And overwhelmingly, the respondents said no data on-prem. So you know what? I just screwed that up, reading it incorrectly. Majority say sure do have some data on-prem. I was looking at the wrong part of that answer. My apologies. Hey, again, it's live TV, folks. So a lot of our respondents still have a lot of data on site. I got a couple of questions. Christian, you were talking about that it's FXSN isn't as expensive as it may first seem, and that was one of the questions. It looks very powerful, but it also feels expensive. So are there hidden costs, and how do you respond to that?
Yeah, I kind of look at it the TCO comparison. So like take what you have on premises and kind of compare it to FSxN as a total TCO. So when you look at on premises, there's your data center, there's your power and cooling. There's also your networking, like your networking, not only just the top of rack switch, but into your core networking too. There's the operational impact of doing like hardware fixes, hardware repairs, new controllers. There's the operational cost of swapping out gear every 3 to 5 years as you go through and upgrade to the latest models. And then on the AWS side, there's a number of optimizations. So like the good thing is you only pay for what you use. You pay as you go. So it's not like you're pre-buying for 3, 5, 6 years. You're really consuming as you go. And so if you kind of look at the curve of over allocation over time, you're starting out with just what you need and paying for that as it's ramping up. And then when you factor the cost savings that come from dedupe compression and the capacity pool tiering, this is a fairly, like every time we do the TCO, it is more inexpensive to move to AWS with this architecture than it is to stay on premises.
Yeah, and just to add a little to that, I mean, this is a great opportunity to really eliminate technical debt, right, as you move so that you can improve and modernize. And that's where we've got teams of people that can, from the data standpoint, do the architecture right, but also if it makes sense to modernize some of the applications to really make them more effective at how they use data and reduce the data footprint and, get things in, to data lakes and, not have so many redundant copies of things. And, there's a whole bunch of things you can do that will not make this cost prohibitive.
So the last poll question about do you still have data on premise? Do you, or is it all in the cloud? Are you telling me I don't have to migrate all my data? I can keep some in my data center?
Yeah, let me answer. I mean, that's the brilliance of ONTAP, right? The data fabric is that, what NetApp has done is your data can be anywhere, right? And you're interacting with it in the same way. Now there's reasons to move it to the cloud. You're not having to buy hardware anymore, right? But you don't have to do that immediately. You could move, some of the older data into the cloud and free up some space on-prem for a while, right, in some of your devices. So, absolutely. If you use, NetApp's got a great tool, Blue XP, where you can sort of move things around and, pretty seamlessly. It's a whole different way of kind of looking at the data layer in an architecture, Jeff.
Well, so help me understand that a little bit, John. As you know, from our relationship, you're a data guy. I'm an app guy, right? That's I grew up on the software development side of the house, albeit COBOL days. So let's put that out there. If I migrate my data, what about my apps? Are they still in my on-premises data center, or
they can be either place, Jeff? And
how do they know where to find the data?
Well, I mean, it depends how you architect them, right?
Okay.
And so, that's where we get into perhaps doing a bit of modernization. And if you've got a robotic system that's very sensitive to latency, then it makes sense to put the apps up in the cloud where the data is. But if it's a less sensitive application to latency, it can be running on-prem and the data can be in the cloud, or vice versa. So there's lots of options, right? And that's, our team will come in and understand your specific needs and what can be done in a certain period of time for you while keeping your business running, so that we can kind of get a project together that is perhaps done in phases, in chunks, that will get you improvements, will get you cost savings, will free up some storage, and then we'll use the Amazon funding to do some modernization and get you to really what I would call the ultimate sort of target architecture, eliminating a lot of debt across the way. But yeah, I mean, from If you had in your COBOL days and the data division in your COBOL code, which I studied at college but didn't do too much of, I mean,
Now
if
you're really
that
making me
data,
feel old, dude.
if that data could in fact be anywhere, it could move without you knowing, your code knowing, and your program still keeps working.
Well, I'm
That's
still
what
doing
I'm about.
my gets and puts, so I haven't changed my
Absolutely.
code
The
yet.
code
But there's
doesn't
something that's
change.
telling it where to go get that data.
Exactly. So it's a layer of independence of, at the data layer, right? So it's decoupled at the data layer, which is quite brilliant, right?
Yeah.
Because, who knows? I mean, much as we think, the way we're doing it in the cloud today makes sense. Well, Amazon's finding new things and new ways of improving things every day. Services are coming out, right? So a lot of what we do over years with our clients is we stay ahead of them with what Amazon is rolling out. And that's why we have labs and things like that on our side. And we then introduce them, at a time that makes sense, not every day, maybe once or twice a year, to potential ways of refactoring certain things that will, gain them additional business agility and let them innovate and let them deal with their customers in a better way, so they get stronger affiliation with their customers, and they're growing market share, they're being innovative, right? So they're not worrying about all this stuff. They're just focused on what do we need to do with our customers, and they can much more quickly turn those things around.
Yeah.
So
Can I ask let me just add some color here, which is I've known Ivy for a long time, and they are a high quality knowledge base around NetApp. And so they're going to bring the best of NetApp to the best of AWS and marry those two things together for you. And a lot of that starts with an assessment, like just kind of getting a view. And what I like to talk about is everybody has a day job, and everybody says like, hey, now go figure out how we get to the cloud, right? That
yeah,
you usually need a little bit of help because you got a day job, right? You got to keep the lights on and the things running, but you can see that long-term vision of like the benefits this is going to bring to you in the long term. And so like having a partner like IV can help you create that path to getting to the cloud. What does that mean? What type of apps go first? What type of apps go second? Once they move, what do I do with them there? How do I operationalize this? How do I take the things that monitor my current infrastructure today to know if things are up and down, and provide a like experience in the cloud for you so that you still know if your things are going up and down at the application level. And so full confidence in IV here and being able to do what they do. And we've picked them as one of our strategic partners for FSXN, specifically because of their history both with AWS and with NetApp. And so strongly suggest kind of just a consultative engagement with them. Play around with some POC credits. Talk to the teams there and work up an action plan, because at some point things will move. I don't know if it'll all go to AWS, but I hope so. Things will move. I can say that tongue in cheek. And kind of being ahead of that's going to be important as you start to think about the strategic direction of where you're going.
This really is a flip it on its head kind of approach to the way we used to be doing things, where as you started off, John, talking about it was application led. Is it kind of an all or nothing, or one size fits all? I'm not really sure exactly how to ask it, but no matter what amount of data I have, do you do a data led migration, or do you still do an application based migration depending on the environment?
We are seeing in often cases both. The applications are kind of secondary in these kinds of efforts, and then they tend to pick up later, right? Because we get the data, over, we get FSN set up, we move some of the apps at that point, and then I think, quite often the client needs to stop and take a breath and continuing doing business. And then we start doing more application stuff afterwards, Jeff.
Okay.
And it's not a one size fit all. I mean, we use the term white glove, which I'm not a big fan of, but we very much tailor our standardized, highly repeatable, highly tested approach to clients, right, and to their needs. We get in and we understand their business, right, and understand the outcomes they're looking for and the kind of the rhythm of their business, right? So that if they're a higher education client, right, we do migrations in the summer and they've got downtime and the students are not there, right?
Yeah.
So you find where does this make sense for you as a client, right? What can we do? Okay, well we got higher ed, you got 3 months of absolute complete downtime. Let's get a whole bunch of stuff done there. With other clients that there are complete blackout periods where you can't do anything, right? With the financial institutions and others when they're closing out things, so that's where our team becomes very knowledge. So we've got vertical knowledge going into it, right, around the industries that we're particularly knowledgeable on, and then we then adapt that to the actual particular clients, right, and find ways of doing this that really fits for them, partner with them, fit to them, and then what we've got the ability to do then is we've got great support, as you can see, from Amazon and NetApp and others. And when we go talk to them, say, look, this client needs this done differently. We need you to support it. They're all over it as well. Because this is not trivial little stuff. These are significant applications, significant data, significant business impact, right? So you get a very skilled team that's used to working together.
Yeah, and we are going on a road show. We're taking this information, this data-led migration process on a road show, and that QR code there on your screen will actually take you to more information and registration for that. So we've got 5 events scheduled now. There's more coming. Next up is Santa Monica on May 23rd. Irvine, 5/24. Seattle, May 31st. Indianapolis, where I'm talking to you from, on June 21st. And St. Louis, June 22nd. So use that QR code if you want to learn more about FXSN and data-led migration. That would be a great way to get together, have dialogue, see a demo, and have some great food and beverages as well.
So yeah, Christian and I will be at the Seattle one at the end of the month. So we'd love to talk to people. I mean, I love talking to clients about this stuff and learning about what they are doing with data, where they're at in their journey to the cloud, and how they're leveraging hybrid solutions and all of that. So.
Excellent. Well, John, we've got about 2 more minutes. So John or Christian, either one. Any closing thoughts for our viewers today?
If you have not used this class of storage service, you really need to try it, and learn more about it, because it will change your organization, your enterprise, as you digitally enable everything you're doing. So, I mean, that to me, it's, whether you do it on your own, you don't involve us, and, whatever. I want to see companies that are running efficiently, that are taking advantage of technology in the right way, right? So that's what I would really encourage, is now's the time to really, look at things like this and consider them, because this is really Amazon maturing in my mind. Over many years, we've said, okay, well, Amazon gives you a whole bunch of Lego blocks. You've kind of got to build things yourself. And, for a business like Innovision, that's a good thing. We get involved and we help customers build. In this case, you've kind of got a full house already built around data. So But there's still plenty to to leverage it the best way. There's a lot we bring, so I've got absolute confidence that we're still got lots of work ahead of us, and then we're looking beyond that into data modernization, data lakes, how to leverage. We do a bunch of machine learning stuff, predictive analytics. So we're looking downfield. We want the migrations over, right? We want to be able to get where you get at everybody.
Beyond that, yeah.
I mean, I've been looking at AI 10 years, waiting. Well, now it's here, in a big way. So.
Yeah, we heard a great presentation on that this morning from Brent and Steve. So, John, Christian, thank you so very, very much. Appreciate you taking the time. Be sure and check out the road shows